they've been very active here, Ryan. Is it possible they're actually doing well? They got an A grade on their draft from Chad Ford. They turned 4 picks into 4 players from established college programs. And that group led by De'Aaron Fox out of Kentucky, including Justin Jackson out of North Carolina. And then you got Harry Giles of Duke, Frank Mason of Kansas. The Mason stuff is interesting, too, because there's a sense of toughness that he could bring. And now the proven veterans that they've brought in so far, George Hill, Zach Randolph, and now Vince Carter joined the roster, 10 All-Star appearances between the group. So it begs the question here. How have they done, Ryan? What's your opinion of the Kings offseason so far?
You know what I find really ironic about this is that guys like Zach Randolph and Vince Carter, the exact players DeMarcus Cousins needed as teammates. He needed somebody like these guys, this kind of personality, Zach Randolph, to say, enough, stop this. And they never did it while he was there. So now that he's gone, look, I love the De'Aaron Fox pick. I think he has a chance to be really special. The other names, Jackson's a real fit-specific guy. If Giles ever gets back to where he was in high school, it'd be terrific. And then Mason, maybe. I mean, he's a good enough shooter. But the names on that list, it's really about Fox. But it's still a team that's missing the playoffs. We all understand that, right?
I just remember that Tim Legler called it the post-Boogie apocalyptic era. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I just feel like, the biggest problem that Sacramento and a lot of Utah's always had is luring people to their environment. And these guys seem to want to go there because they're at their end of their careers.
Yes.
But also, you have this nice mix of old and new. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say that's my eighth Western Conference playoff team.
No,
that's my 8th Western Conference playoff team.
You think they'll make the play?
Yeah, and I don't want you to ever play this back because I'll be completely wrong. But I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay.
You disagree, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're a week into free agency, and I'd love to see the finished product on some of these teams, but the Timberwolves weren't a playoff team last year.
Yes.
So
they're my 7th.
They're 7th?
Yeah.
I have a feeling we get to 10.
This is going to be a heck of a playback for you.
Might get ready.
This is old takes exposed, by the way, already. This is going to be in trouble.
Exactly.
Yeah. But, look, De'Aaron Fox, I think, is ready to play right now. And I can't say that about every guy that was drafted in the top 10. So I like him.
How tough must it be out west looking up at the Warriors and the Rockets and thinking, how am I going to compete against those guys?
I think if you're a general manager, if you're an owner, you just have to look to 2019, 2020, and start thinking that if we're realistically going to contend, we need to put our building blocks in place now, because I just don't. And Ryan might disagree with me. I don't even see the Spurs with Rudy Gay or any making that jump. I don't see them winning a 7-game series against the Warriors. I think the Warriors are something special, and I can't remember a team that has put this much distance between themselves and the rest of the lot.
And it's not just the Warriors, too. If you look at all the other teams there in the top 4, you're going to battle it out. Even the bottom 4 in that top 8. I feel bad for a team like the Blazers when you look at the talent that they have and the stars with those guards, and McCollum and Lillard. And you're like, are they even closer to what they did last year?
Well, Portland had some defensive problems that they would admit. I mean, they were a pretty bad defensive team, even though you love that backcourt. I mean, it's probably one of the 3 best backcourts in the NBA with those 2 guys. But when you mention the Warriors, I like what Daryl Morey has done. Instead of this plan of, the Warriors are just going to be awesome for 4 years, and he admits it. It's very much almost like a portfolio manager where he goes, we are taking on more risk because that's what it is right now. So I understand, there's certain teams that are positioned, Mike, that could say we're young enough that we can kind of just take a knee on all this stuff for a little while, but there's still that salary cap floor, which you got to get to 90% of what the cap is, so you still have to spend some of that money, so that's why you're seeing some of these contracts. But I am more impressed, even if I think it's more futile, the teams that aren't deciding to just wait it out for 3 years to see what happens with Golden State.
I agree in that realm, especially with Houston, because if there were any team, I want to see, if they're not done, that's a team I think could make some noise. If they are done, I still want to see if Chris Paul and James Harden can play together. Yeah. That's my big question mark.
All right. So. And then there is Kelly Olynyk, who signed a 4-year, $50 million deal with the Heat after having his rights renounced by the Celtics after they signed Gordon Hayward. Check this out for Olynyk and his Canadian brother. A couple of Canadians just agreeing to new deals in their respective sports. Connor McDavid of the Edmonton Oilers now with the richest per-year deal in the NHL, $12.5 million annually. Kelly Olynyk just agreeing to that 4-year deal with the Heat, also worth $12.5 a year. Difference is, to get that deal in the NHL, you got to be the reigning Hart Trophy winner, lead the league in points. In the NBA, Olynyk tied for 150th in points per game last season. And not to pile on, but did we mention that Olynyk is going to Miami? When January rolls around, that translates to about a 50-degree advantage in temperature for Olynyk. And we won't even mention the fact that there is no state income tax in Florida. So, Mike, the Heat lost out on Gordon Hayward, moving on with their plan B pretty quickly. What do you think of the Miami Heat?
I mean, this was clearly a fallback move. This was your plan B move. It was I'm not going to be a neuroscientist, so I'm going to become a barista at Starbucks, basically. But and I don't think it was that much of a drop off. The amazing thing is Kelly Olynyk made that money to me in Game 7 against the Wizards. He had this unbelievable game, right. And not that he wasn't a good reserve to begin with, but look, it's the new normal. I think that guys are going to get this kind of money. Good luck for them. I just didn't know, and I'm surprised too, that basketball's become the national pastime in Canada now.
Yeah,
I mean,
Canada's been giving us all sorts of talent. Yes. It's terrific. But if you think about the numbers here, and I was doing a little math on this, is if Olynyk had signed for 4 years and $32 million, would we freak? Or we go, whatever. I mean, he can start in spots. He'd be a role player. Because that's kind of what this contract is in this new world. So if you go back 2 years ago and you look at the cap, it's just about $70 million, and you look at it now, just over about 100. That's this contract you just signed. I mean, you just have to multiply it by what this is now. And him making $50 million, it seems absurd, but it's really not that far off from what the contract would have been with a $70 million cap. So, yes, Miami fans aren't going, oh, that's pretty cool, like Hayward, Olynyk. I mean, it's two completely different guys. But we have to start remembering how some of these deals work with the $100+ million cap.
I just think everybody in America is upset because he looks like a roadie from Metallica. And so how can you give that kind of guy money? But, look, I mean, Miami still got to get a star.
Yeah.
I mean, again, Dragic is good. Hassan Whiteside is a special player. But if you're Pat Riley and you couldn't convince Gordon Hayward and you lost Dwayne Wade and LeBron James in the last 3 years for different reasons, you got to get another star if you're going to fill that arena every night again.
But I hear that, Mike, and I go, I mean, look, you know this, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know. It's just so hard. I mean,
I know it's easier said than done.
20+ teams going, when are we going to get one of these top 5 guys? And most of those GMs are never going to get that guy, and then they're going to lose their job and they're going to become assistant GMs. So when I look at Riley and this idea that he's lost his touch, in a way, Heat fans should be thrilled that 7 years ago you even had the touch to pull off what was the greatest free agent summer that we'd ever seen. Yeah. So getting one of those ever is actually pretty rare. So I think the mistake may have been because that happened the way it did in 2010, that it was just supposed to happen all the time, and the Heat are loading up for Durant. They're going to be able to keep LeBron, and, Pat Riley and these guys, banners, the rings, all these different things. Most every team is getting through this week feeling disappointed about not getting that big game.
And the mystique of that meeting and the legend that came out of that story with the rings and stuff.
Well, I almost feel like
thinks it's a guarantee.
Right. I mean, if Wade wasn't there in 2010, that doesn't happen.
Yes.
Okay? And so maybe at the time we gave Riley a little too much credit, but I would say today Riley's taking far too much heat as if he's lost his touch and that he's somehow become a failure, which would be absurd to even suggest about somebody like Pat Riley.
I feel like Pat Riley created the monster of the super team, and it came back to eat him. And it came back to eat a lot of people. So, yeah.
And the Warriors just keep on eating.
They do. Just snacking away. Ryan, Mike, thank you much.
Thank you.
2017 NBA Draft. The Los Angeles Lakers select Lonzo Ball.
It's a dream come true. Thank you for everybody helping me get here.
Mike Wisely, the undefeated, back with us now. The Vegas Summer League kicking off tonight, which means we'll be seeing the debut of Lonzo Ball in a Lakers uniform. What excites you the most about Lonzo and his appearance in Summer League tonight?
Lonzo Ball, to me, is, and I know people have used a cross between Jason Kidd and Magic Johnson. He reminded me a little bit of Pete Maravich, too. He has this ability. The ball's on a string. He's a pure point guard in a league where so many kids have grown up being shoot-first point guards. And so this guy's not only got a stroke, even though it reminds me a little bit of Jamal Wilkes back in the day where he curves his arm around.
Yeah.
But just to see the excitement of him going up and down the floor, finding his teammates, this is a person who gives himself to the good of the group. I mean, what I mean by that is he's happier when the ball's landing on someone's fingertips and they're putting it in, then he's throwing it down himself. And you can't say that about a lot of players in this league. So I'm looking forward to that. And you didn't know this, Jay, but tonight is the debut of the Zoe 2 from the Big Baller Brand shoe collection.
I did not know that.
No, it's $4.95 and not like $4.95, $4.95.
How many pair did you get?
I saved my money for my kids' college fund instead.
You're a smart man.
Yeah, I'm not giving LeVar Ball nothing. Nothing. No.
Earlier this week, the Nets agreed to an offer sheet with Otto Porter, 4 years, $106.5 million deal. Washington has the ability to match the offer sheet. What are you hearing about the Wizards and Porter?
What are you having for dinner tonight?
I haven't decided yet.
All right, let's just say it's chicken.
Okay.
As sure as you're having chicken, right. Otto Porter is re-signing with the Wizards.
Okay.
And the only reason I'm saying this is because I obviously live in Washington, and I know the organization. They are not going to lose Otto Porter, and they're just determined to keep him. They think he's a glue guy. He was the number 3 pick. He's a pick that people thought was too high at the time, and he wasn't. They've developed him. And one thing about the Wizards is they haven't developed a lot of players in their history. And they've moved guys. Rip Hamilton ended up in Detroit, and they lost all these. Rasheed Wallace was once a Wizard. All these guys that they drafted never matured in their organization. This guy did. He's not only a great person. He's a tremendous player. And is he a perennial all-star? No, but he's a glue guy that you need to keep on your roster.
And he came into his own last season.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
All right, Mike's going to be back next hour with plenty more from around the NBA. Mike, thank you. And I'm going to get you to take me to dinner. How about that?
All right.
Jay, Mike, a lot of guys are going to be buying Donovan Mitchell and as well as Jason Tatum dinner because these guys showing out in their performance at the Summer League in Salt Lake City. Utah fans are not pleased with Gordon Hayward leaving, showing their emotions on the big screen. We'll never forget you, Howard. And I love the Ainge, another reason to hate BYU. Yeah, okay, don't hold back. Donovan Mitchell against Jason Tatum. This was the matchup I think everybody had circled coming into this game. And Tatum fadeaway, beautiful. Tatum 3rd pick overall out of Duke, looking strong and silky smooth. 12 points, 12 rebounds. Meanwhile, Mitchell, the 13th overall pick out of Louisville, not afraid to play some defense, not shy on the matchup, said he wanted to cover Tatum one-on-one, and he'll win this one. You'll hear the whistle, physicality, little stare down, Mitchell sending a message, not backing down. Jazz fans in the arena loving it. Then Mitchell going one-on-one with Tatum here. Sound up.
Tatum, one-on-one, the spinner. Inside and the hammer. Julian Wright from Donovan Mitchell. And Tatum was on his backside. Oh my, play of this week.
Julian Wright with the finish. Many Jazz players been weighing in on Mitchell's performance the last couple games. Joe Ingles going, Donovan.
Anytime you play a guy who's the top pick, everybody's coming for him, and same thing with yesterday. I think I didn't get the opportunity with my good friend of mine, Markel, so I just wanted to go out there and just show I can play defense today. Kind of all happened so fast, but it's just within the flow of the game, and it's definitely a spark. We didn't really have energy in the first half, so I just wanted to make my presence felt. I wasn't really hitting shots. I didn't really have a great offensive game, but like I said, the defense travels, so you just got to make sure you have a great defensive game, even if shots aren't falling.
What a great mindset. Aware that the shot wasn't falling, finished with 8 points, so he brought the defense, and then picks with the family.
Breaking news here on SportsCenter, the Boston Celtics, they're busy. They traded guard Avery Bradley to the Pistons for forward Marcus Morris, according to league sources, telling our Adrian Wojnarowski Bradley averaged over 16 points per game, 6 rebounds last season. The Celtics have been aggressively trying to create enough salary cap room to give Gordon Hayward the 4-year, $128 million maximum contract he agreed to on Tuesday. Bradley spent his first 7 seasons in the NBA, all with the Celtics. He posted career highs in points per game, rebounds per game, and assists per game. Although he played just 55 games, his fewest since 2012-2013. And Wojo joins us now. And let me tell Adrian, how did this come about?
Linda, Boston, since they got the commitment from Gordon Hayward on free agency, they've had to create some salary cap space to sign him to a max deal. And in doing that, they were out shopping Avery Bradley, Marcus Smart, and Jay Crowder. They closed in here in the last several hours on a deal with the Pistons, which the Boston sends out Bradley and a second-round pick for Marcus Morris. For the Celtics, it gives them the ability now to sign Hayward into their salary cap space, and Detroit gets a tremendous two-way player in Avery Bradley, who just I think going forward was going to be difficult for the Celtics to pay him his market value, which could be as much as $20 million a year.
You know, let's talk about Detroit a little bit. So how does Bradley fit in with them? I mean, where do they go from here to here? Or, I mean, how will that work with their roster?
He is perfect. I mean, Stan Van Gundy has been looking for that tough-minded two-way player at the guard position. He can score the ball. He defends. He's an elite defender at his position. And it gives them now an option. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's a restricted free agent, he could potentially go out and get a max offer sheet from a team like Otto Porter did in Washington. Detroit has been very reluctant to pay him that kind of money, and it gives Detroit now the flexibility to maybe not have to keep Caldwell-Pope. They could work on a sign and trade with another team and get some assets back for him, but now they have an alternative here if they don't go forward with him. You know, Avery Bradley's a player who I think the Pistons are going to be very aggressive in trying to extend long term.
Back to Boston, Wojo. Is this it for Danny Ainge for now?
Well, this was a major piece. They had to get this done here in the last 24 hours to get the Hayward agreement signed. Boston still needs some more size up front, some more strength. They need to be able to rebound and defend the rim better, and I think that's something Boston now will be able to address here between now and the start of training camp.
All right, Adrian Wojnarowski, who broke this story. Avery Bradley, now a Detroit Piston. Let's talk more about it. We welcome in our NBA analyst, Ryan Russillo, and, of course, the writer for The Undefeated, none other than Mike Wise. And, Ryan, I'm going to start with you. When you first heard about this, that Wojo broke this story, what came to mind?
A bunch of different things. We knew that the restrictions on the salary for Boston is something they're going to have to work with, and Avery Bradley's $8 million this year, so bringing in Morris, they save some money because he's $5 million for this year and next. So there's a cheaper alternative there. Jay Crowder, to keep him, is a cheaper alternative. He's under contract. So Bradley was going to become really expensive, not just this year, but next year when he becomes a free agent. On the other side for Detroit, their salary sheet is a mess. They're paying a lot of guys that aren't that good a lot of money, and they're worried about Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So now this means, as a restricted free agent for Pope, if he was offered a major deal from someone else, then they might not necessarily care about it now because they have somebody like Bradley who'd be part of their future.
Well, I was going to say, Gordon Hayward better be good. I mean, he better be very good because of all the guys I didn't want to see them lose if I were the Celtics.
It was him, Bradley?
I would have rather seen Marcus Smart go. And Crowder, I don't know, he would have been a tough go. But Avery Bradley is that skilled player that's developed year after year. He's gotten better year after year. And I understand you have to make tough decisions. You're not going to be able to pay him in a year. Both he and Isaiah Thomas come up next year. So, look, I think it's a huge addition. I feel like the Celtics are, were gritty enough, but Marcus Morris only makes them grittier. I think he's played 79, 81, 82 games the last 3 years, hasn't had an injury problem, 14 points a game last 2 seasons, 5 rebounds. I mean, this is a good pickup for them. You're right. They needed someone to take the load off Al Horford down low a little bit. But I hate losing Avery Bradley.
What do you think?
That's why I'd be a lousy GM, because I'd hold on to players that I shouldn't.
I know, right? So, you couldn't work in this world with the NBA. Ryan, so how do they look on the court now, the Boston Celtics?
Well, they have wing depth that, even though I agree with Mike and how much you like Avery Bradley because of his defense, they'll be able to get by without this.
Smart plays great defense, though.
Oh, Smart's terrific. Smart is one of the best small guards that defends bigger players. What he does to some of these guys that are much bigger than him in the post, it's embarrassing for the Smart just owns him. But offensively, he's not necessarily Bradley, and Bradley was still a little inconsistent at times. But now we're talking about that front line, as Woj just mentioned. The Celtics still need size because the Horford-Morris pairing, rebounding-wise, that's not a good group. So now we're looking at a team that was the worst rebounding team in the playoffs going into last year. So, look, free agency isn't over yet. Like, they don't have to worry about the playoffs next week. So we'll see what the next move is there to try to add somebody that has more of a rebounding background. But it makes sense with Morris because of the offense and the fact that his salary is cheaper than Bradley. This is all about how expensive Bradley would have been next year than what happened today.
Yeah, and this is all about getting Gordon Hayward make sure he's in the fray, and you don't have to worry about him. And then you can, as you said, go after the next guy.
You know who else doesn't have to worry about the playoffs, and actually for quite some time? I believe the New York Knicks. That's right. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a Knicks fan, and I'm like, what? I thought we were rebuilding. What gives, Ryan? Tim Hardaway Jr., 4 years, $71 million? What happened? What's going on with Steve Mills here? Is Phil Jackson calling him up from a foreign place? Why make this deal?
Phil traded this guy, so maybe Steve wanted him back.
Steve's favorites.
Here's the problem with restricted free agency, okay? You have to construct a contract that's so bad that
Love
the
that
team
headline,
that has the
by the
player,
way. You like
right?
that?
Holy sheet.
Yes.
Yeah, that you have to discourage the team from wanting to match that contract. And the reward of that is then now you get the player with the bad contract. So
Atlanta's not matching this.
Yeah,
no way, right?
Probably not. But look, nobody in Washington thought that Otto Porter was going to get a deal offered for $106 million. So here's the deal. I don't think there is any real true free agency. It's the value of that player to that team. I mean, if Kirk Cousins, was on the market right now, and I guess he kind of is, but he will be next year. The New England Patriots would have nothing to do with him because they've already got a quarterback. Right. It depends on it depends on what you need.
But don't the Knicks already have Courtney Lee, who plays the same position as Tim Hardaway Jr.?
Yeah, and they're paying him a good chunk. The problem with this is where the J.J. Redick thing works out. You go, okay, I'm going to pay you an absurd amount of money for 1 year, and Redick's a better player than Tim Hardaway Jr., and then we can figure this out. So if you were so desperate for Tim Hardaway Jr., it's about discouraging and restricted free agency. We cannot say that enough, because here's how restricted free agency usually works. You talk to a team. They scream up and down about the other team that gave their restricted free agent the offer. They say how stupid the offer is. Then the team matches it, and they keep him. All right? So I don't think he's going to get matched, but that's what happens. Like, the league, they just, I can't believe the other team did this. That's so stupid. They offer him way too much money. I'm like, yeah, you just matched it, though. And they're like, yeah, we know. We had to keep the guy. So
it's an insane system. I feel like the Knicks, they almost had to make some news that wasn't negative, and you're running out of players at this point.
Yeah.
You're running out, and you're figuring what you're going to do with the cap room. You don't know what you're going to do with Carmelo Anthony yet, and you have to do something to make people in New York go, hey, wait, the Knicks did something.
No, I think half of them are saying, what did the Knicks just do? I mean, more than half. They're in shock like myself. All right, Carmelo Anthony, we wait. We know about Adrian Wojnarowski's report that he's open, Melo is, to lifting his no trade to Houston or Cleveland. I know we ask you about this daily. What do you think is going to happen here?
Well, by the way, I just want to say it's about time Woj started putting his dues in here and putting it,
Yeah,
what has he done?
Really, not much.
Checked it up.
Ryan, really, I mean,
the people that I talked to on this one, the Houston trade idea is something that would work better for Melo, whereas Cleveland, I think, is really hoping that he still is bought out. I think Cleveland would like to take Melo and bring him into the group that is already there. They could dump some of the contracts, but they don't want to move a Tristan Thompson. They don't want to move a Kevin Love for him. They want to add Melo to what they have out there now. Houston, the problem there is the contracts they'd be sending out, all the different variations that I've seen of this trade are all long-term deals. And we thought prior to the Tim Hardaway offer sheet that the Knicks were not interested in longer-term deals. Ryan Anderson is owed a ton of money. Eric Gordon was terrific last year, but Eric Gordon was terrific in Houston's system. Okay, so when you bring in Eric Gordon to the Knicks, he's not the Eric Gordon that you saw with the Rockets where it's wide-open shots all over the place. So those are not things I would still think, post this Hardaway Jr. news, that the Knicks would not be interested in taking on all that salary just to move Melo out.
In discussions with somebody in the Knicks organization, they haven't heard anything literally about that Carmelo has, in fact, waived his no-trade clause. It's only been media reports to them. So this is sort of, okay, just like a team waiting for an offer sheet to see if this is actually a true figure. They want to hear from Carmelo Anthony. I still think much of this happens after they meet with David Griffin, former Cleveland Cavaliers GM, and they get somebody in that team president thing, because I don't know if James Dolan, as much as he has a great relationship with Steve Mills, is comfortable with him making all these moves at this point.
Yeah, I'll tell you. It's a soap opera.
Linda's not hiding it today.
I'm not. I can't help it. I'm just.
This is tough love from you, though.
I represent, like, I'd say 98% of Knicks fans the way I feel today. Ryan and Mike, we'll hear from you later. Thanks so much. Tony.
Linda.